The 45th verse of the Tao Te Ching. Quote, "The greatest perfection seems imperfect, and yet its use is inexhaustible. The greatest fullness seems empty, and yet its use is endless. Great straightness seems twisted. Great intelligence seems stupid. Great eloquence seems awkward. Great truth seems false. Great discussions seem silent. Activity conquers cold. Inactivity conquers heat. Stillness and tranquility set things in order in the universe." Unquote. Living beyond superficialities. This verse subtly asks you to view the world with new eyes. Most likely, you've been conditioned to evaluate just about everything with a cursory and fleeting glance. Here, however, Lao Tzu is asking you to stop seeing through your ego-dominated culture and to instead begin noticing the still and tranquil, invisible space within everything. When you go beyond superficialities, you become aware that what used to look imperfect, empty, awkward, or even stupid now appears perfect, full, eloquent, and intelligent. Your previous way of thinking about the world told you that it's full of imperfections. The people in your life should be different. Politicians should be aligned with your values. The weather should be more consistent and reliable. The multitudes should be peaceful. Young people should study harder, and older people should be more tolerant. The assessments are relentless and endless, and they're all based on teachings that you've adopted. While they may seem sensible and correct, these views are simply the result of only looking at what exists on the surface. Hold on a minute, this verse of the Tao Te Ching seems to say. Try looking at it this way. What seems to be imperfect has perfection, and what seems empty and false has a profound spiritual truth supporting it. The paradox here is evident. Hunger does exist in the world as an element of the perfection of the Tao, and the desire to help those who are starving is also part of that same perfection. You're being asked not to label what you see as imperfect, stupid, or empty. Rather, look for the stillness and tranquility within you that you can bring to these superficial appearances. When you refrain from engaging in judgments based solely on looks, you paradoxically become an instrument for change. Study the opening lines of this verse. What seems imperfect is nevertheless inexhaustible. What seems empty is endless. Imagine a pitcher out of which you could pour delicious iced tea without ever needing to refill it. Impossible, you say? Yes, that's exactly what the Tao does. Never, ever runs out. It never has, and it never will. It cannot be exhausted. You are asked to be like this inexhaustible, always full Tao. Be non-judgmental, be still, and above all, tranquil. Let the world and all of its creations unfold, while you remain constant with the invisibleness that allows it all to take place. Allow whatever you feel deep within you in that quiet and peaceful space to guide you in the direction that is your true destiny. Recently, I attended a talk by my friend, colleague, and mentor, Ram Dass, who had a stroke in 1997 that impacted his speech. As of this writing, he spends almost all of his waking moments in a wheelchair, and his lecture lasted approximately 45 minutes. He received a standing ovation at the end, and I personally felt so blessed and blissful by having been in the audience. There are some who might have only seen superficialities. To them, the lecture might have seemed halting and slow because of the stroke, and judged as embarrassing or even intellectually challenging. Much of my dear friend's time on stage was silent, and it certainly appeared to be awkward in comparison to his earlier speeches, which were always masterful and eloquent. But as I sit here telling you this story, I can only say that because I changed the way I looked at this experience, the entire thing changed for me in a very dramatic way. While Ram Dass's words were few, his message was straightforward, laconic, and direct. What might have appeared as unintelligible to others struck me as brilliance masked by circumstance. What could have been viewed as fumbling was articulate and perfect in every way. I heard a great presentation to a loving, receptive crowd that was done largely between long periods of luscious silence. Throughout this lecture, all of the audience members and I remained still and tranquil. As Lao Tzu concludes in this 45th verse of the Tao Te Ching, it sets things in order in our universe. I can feel the presence of Lao Tzu here as I gaze at this drawing of this beautiful old man sitting on an ox. He seems to be urging me to tell you how to apply this great wisdom, which comes from living beyond shallowness. First, See imperfections as perfect, even if your ego mind cannot comprehend this. Become aware of your conditioned responses that lead you to label people, places, and circumstances as less than perfect. See the flawlessness behind the supposed defects. As I watched my children grow up, for instance, there were many times when their challenging behavior at a certain age was really a kind of brilliance. For example, I observed them refusing to eat certain nutritious foods, knowing that they needed to go through these phases in order to reach higher places. An adamant refusal to eat vegetables isn't stupid or twisted thinking. It was perfect and necessary for them at the time. You can apply this same kind of patient stillness to your world. Inch by inch, we evolve as people toward a fuller union with the Tao. One of history's great mystical thinkers, Meister Eckhart, poetically put it this way several centuries ago, quote, "Every object, every creature, every man, woman, and child has a soul, and it is the destiny of all to see as God sees, to know as God knows, to feel as God feels, to be as God is." Unquote. And secondly, give yourself permission to be perfect even with all of your seeming imperfections. Recognize yourself first and foremost as a creation of God, which is your perfection. It has nothing to do with how you look or any so-called mistakes or failures you may have attracted to yourself. Even though these superficialities will continue throughout your entire lifetime in this body, the source of your material self, the eternal Tao, is flawless, straight, full, and an expression of truth. When those ways that you've been taught are imperfect appear, and you notice the pain you're causing yourself by disliking or judging them, call in your Tao perfect self to tend to the so-called faults. When you surround it with love, the superficial appearance and feeling of being unloved will become tranquil. The 13th century mystical poet Rumi sums this up perfectly in this short observation. Quote, "You are the truth, from foot to brow. Now what else would you like to know?" Unquote. Do the Tao now. Make a list of 10 things you've labeled as imperfect, twisted, or stupid. Then take one at a time and elicit the feeling in your body that's attached to that item. Allow the sensation to be observed and to be held in your thoughts from a perspective of loving permission. Do this for as long as you're comfortable allowing the Tao now to be present. Remember as you do this exercise that the Tao is non-judgmental and provides equally to all. You can take the sunshine and bask in it, or you can burn yourself to a crisp. The Tao just is, and it doesn't care.